Hello and welcome to the Mac Admins podcast. The Mac Admins podcast is presented by VMware. VMware Workspace ONE empowers you with full macOS lifecycle management. Get past the hassles of legacy imaging with faster modern onboarding. Easily deliver all your native Mac app packages as well as SaaS and virtual Windows apps and empower users with one-click single sign-on. Stay on top of your security needs with complete encryption management and rich conditional access. The recognized industry-leading unified endpoint management solution is your one-stop shop for all Apple devices and apps. I was so close to nailing that. Learn more at workspaceone.com. And thanks so much to VMware. And they've been a great host, great sponsor for the podcast. And I'm joined by some wonderful people today. Ben, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing pretty great. This is the last part of the MacAd UK. That you're first as organizer. How are you feeling? Sorry. You're director or how's that work?
I'm on the creating team. Is that
there
the right
you go.
term? So and it was lovely for us to be involved with this process as well. And we've had some great talks, and it's very thankful that everybody made our job quite easy in the end because we had just great content came straight through in the initial call for proposals. So.
Very wonderful. And thanks, of course, to the wonderful folks at AMSS who helped done the organizing. Big round of applause for Rose, who made this all happen. But I'm not just joined by Ben today. Graham, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
And thanks so much for coming along. And you are the systems architect for Airbnb.
I'm a systems
systems architect.
There are several, but yes.
You can take credit.
I am. Yes, I'm the only one in the entire company. I'm responsible for everything. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean that's a good place to be. We just won't tell the other guys. It's cool. But and also joining us, Joel Rennick from Jamf.
Hello.
What is your new title?
What do you want it to be?
Guy who does stuff with Thing?
Yeah.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah. Nomad.
Nomad. Yeah, no, that works out well. So you started off the conference by launching some code live on stage.
We did. I tried to be like Greg Nagel. I can aspire. I'm not there yet, but I'm working on it.
All right.
Because I don't think I did the merge very well, but yeah, no, it was exciting to have that. And have I been saying it wrong the whole time? Is it Mac ADUK?
No, it's Macaduck.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure.
And we got the little duck in our goodie bag. It's blue.
Yeah. And everybody knows about rubber duck debugging and that type of thing, right? Anybody's heard of that concept? So now you've actually got a duck that you can do it with.
There you go. And so if you're stuck on the problem, explain it to the duck. If it doesn't make sense, there's your problem.
And if it talks back to you, maybe you should just walk away from the computer for a minute.
Yeah, if the duck starts answering, it's time for a walk around the block, clear your head. Some water would be good. You might be dehydrated. It's helpful. So I wanted to talk to everybody kind of about what your big takeaway was. And, we're here at the end of the conference. We spent 2 long days, getting our heads full of knowledge and interesting talks from all over the community. I kind of wanted to know what each of you thought was your best takeaway. And Ben, I'll start with you.
I think there's just a wide diversity of subjects that have been over the past few days. We've gone from like CI build trains to looking at security, how you bring that across your org in a I can't do Robin justice with the name of the framework. Yeah. And then we get things like, the fact that we can manage Firefox now with a profile, which is massive if anybody's had to worry about that. And then my boring talk about Apple School Manager and that type of thing, but it's all foundational stuff that you need to bring in. So I think our Apple admin role, we are starting to look further afield for these types of things, and we're starting to look outside of the traditional wheelhouse, that's been my takeaway anyway.
Great.
Really for me, it was encapsulating the 2 opening talks is that things are changing and they're not going back anymore. We have to manage our devices the way that Apple wants us to. We can't image anymore. It's really DEP or nothing. Things are moving forward where we want to or not.
Yep. Joel?
There's how to follow up those 2 things. I was pleasantly pleased with the workshops. It was a little, workshops are a lot of work. If you've put together one of them, bless you.
Yeah.
I went longer than I should have, and I had more to say. So I need to refine that a little bit more now.
Doesn't sound like you at all, Joe.
No, it doesn't sound like me at all. I'm sorry. I was out of character today. But it was really cool to have a whole room full of people kind of looking over and doing some stuff. So that was exciting to get kind of more of a hands-on feel to this than what we'd had in the past.
Yeah, and I sat in on Ben Goodstein's talk on working with APIs through scripting, through Python and Bash, and it was nice. He actually, props to Ben, because he actually wrote an API that we could tinker with live. And that was really, really awesome for, attendees to be able to, do things with that API in a way that, we can understand. You can go get data from point A, throw it in point B. And, having that tangible experience on a system that's maybe not production in possibly the most effective, useful way was really helpful for me. Because I've got access to plenty of APIs where I can really screw something up. Having one that's a little less screw-upable, I think, if that's a word, was really helpful for my mental process for that. So, my cap is tipped. And the other thing that I really enjoyed, Armin's talk, as Graham said, this is the future. Go to the future. Do not try and remain where you are because it is comfortable and safe. Go someplace interesting and try and break it. And when you break it, learn. Has been the most helpful mantra for me over the last couple of years. Because there's no right way to do this, but there are a lot of wrong ways to do it. And coming up with the least wrong way to do it right is obviously our challenge. So the other thing I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about was what did you see that you're excited to think more about in the future? What kind of sparked your interest for something you're taking away and you're like, oh yeah, I want to work on that?
I think, one of the things that came out last week was the announcement of the Azure Federated Services for managed Apple IDs. So if you've got managed school, if you've got Apple School Manager, you can then attach that to your Azure AD, and then you can use your credentials from Azure AD to authenticate instead of your managed Apple ID and having a separate set of credentials there. And then you look at a shared iPad. Now suddenly someone's logging in with Azure AD on that device. So hopefully that can something that can fall into macOS. Maybe there's going to be other options there available, because you can do some IDP times, MFA, etc. options as well. But it was interesting to Apple kind of having this week before the event, and then they kind of slipped a load of the bit of hardware here, this new services, the rest of it, and then the event got weird.
Yeah, it did get a little weird.
Yeah, when Big Bird turned up, I lost it. I was done.
I mean, who doesn't want to see Big Bird? So, but yeah, it did get a little odd there. Graham?
For me, I won't say I want to use it, but it was absolutely fascinating, the macOS on Docker and Kubernetes talk.
Yeah.
It's both wonderful and terrifying all at the same time. It seems immensely fragile, and I applaud Mac Stadium for even looking at that. But it's fascinating. Yeah,
that and David Ackland's dive into signing and encryption was a kind of a real stretch around my brain. And it's always dangerous when you put numbers in front of a liberal arts major like me, because then eventually they stop making sense and you start tweaking around with it. And that's kind of how I felt in the Docker and Kubernetes on a native bootloader on the Mac side of things. And it's a Mac, but not. And or it's a Mac, but maybe more so. Kind of like putting all of the rubber bumpers around it. There was a lot of stuff there. We're going to try and get Chris on the podcast at some point in the future to kind of tell us how it happened and walk us through the crazy stuff that happened as part of all of that. How did you go from, hey, we got asked if this was possible, to, hey, that's really crazy, to, yeah, let's do that. Let's give that a shot. Let's actually see if we can make that work. Joel, how about you?
I have trouble kind of admitting this in public, but I've been spending so much time working on the IDP side. It was kind of refreshing to get back to AD. I don't think that's a long-term thing. I know, but it was kind of like, oh, this is how it used to work. And it was cool because at the workshop we had a couple of good ideas of things to add in, and I kind of thought we'd almost been to a point where we were covering a lot of these kind of more basic stuff. But people brought up the concept of people getting married and how do you change their name the next time they sign in,
right?
And a couple of things like that was really cool. They're like, well, we still got some cool stuff that we can do here.
Yeah. And I was going to say that was something that came up for us with the Jump Cloud user in the not too distant past. And, they've got some scripts to make that possible, but it's still kind of like hey, how do I get from point A to point B? That's a very human focused IT task. And it's incredibly important to the end user. and oftentimes incredibly difficult because we build these IDP systems to be like, yeah, you've made a thing, that is the inviolate thing, but no, it might actually change labels at some point.
Yep.
And, to actually have a way in which to handle those kind of unique identifiers is important.
Yep. Agreed.
So what was different for you this year, Ben? I mean, aside from your role changing, what was different for you about this year's conference as opposed to last?
I think the venue. I think as much as I enjoyed coming into a cinema, maybe hungover, and smelling popcorn at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Ooh, that's not a great combo, is it?
But it was. I think this has worked out really well. I think everybody here, with the corridor and having all this, because there's been a lot more hallway track, a lot more kind of more cohesive in the way that I've seen it, and the food's been great and everything as well. So, yeah, so thank you, folks, for the venue. It's been great.
Yeah, shouts for the facilities, folks. This has been a great spot. Graham, how about you?
Sure, the venue as well. No reclining chairs has been great. I don't think anyone's fallen asleep. But really, I think our ecosystem as Apple admins has changed a lot in the last year. Last year we had the iMac Pro, and that was the only Mac for T2 in. We could still kid ourselves. We could do without an MDM. Imaging was still sort of a thing, and but now we have T2s in basically every Mac, every modern Mac. Our world's changed a lot in the last year. And I think some of the sessions here have really reflected that.
Mm-hmm. Joel?
I like being next to Borough Market.
Yeah.
That's been some good food.
Yeah, no doubt.
So no, it's cool to see, right? This is our second time south of the, I'm going to get this wrong, Thames.
Yes.
He was concerned about the pronunciation of Thames, not the number of times south of the river.
Sure, Thames.
Correct.
This is not a river in Connecticut, therefore it is the Thames, not the Thames.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. No, it's cool, right? Because this is the fourth location.
fourth location. Yep. I'd say the best of the bunch. So,
Yeah. What do you folks think?
yeah.
Yep.
It's been great having a really full house. I've been in a number of those rooms where it was capacity, and standing room only even, and really great crowd this year. Really different crowd. I've seen a lot of new faces. This is fourth time out for me, and I see some familiar faces, but I saw a lot of new folks here. So if this is your first Macaduck, raise your hand real quick. Just see. That's a lot of hands. That's awesome. Yeah. So good times.
For the listeners.
Yeah, that was about
80% of them.
Yeah, more than half.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do folks think? Pretty good first time out? All right, lots of thumbs up out there in the audience. So,
and we also have some new speakers as well. There's been many faces on stage that we haven't seen before anyway.
Absolutely.
And they've all done a fantastic job, everyone that I've seen as well. So thank you.
Yeah, tremendous, everybody. And definitely clap for that. So as we start to look forward, this is kind of always the inflection point in the year when we start looking. I feel like at this point, if you haven't put out, the most recent release of the operating system at this point, you're probably not pressured to do so. I'd say that's fair. But now's the point at which, we start to think ahead in terms of where, we're 3 months out from WWDC and macOS. I'm assuming it's going to be 10.15, not something. Apple can always, pull an audible and it's called something else entirely. But what are you thinking about in terms of macOS 15? What are you interested in changes or adds or deletes inside the operating system as a whole?
I think there's that fear now with PPPCP and user-approved kernel. It's more that what is going to come next. Obviously, we know that you need the MDM part of that, but sometimes it's not necessarily joined up because the MDM vendors can't release the support for a thing, and then you document a thing, and it can change quite quickly as well. So who knows what's going to happen in regards to that? That's going to be a bit frightening. But there's also been loads of pace changing in regards to other things. So Dan was mentioning this in regards to the shared device licensing stuff or the Adobe side of things. And there's a whole other thing that's completely changing. And it's just, at some point, I wouldn't mind it just give us a break and just stop.
Take a pause?
Yeah.
I just say that for my summer vacation plans. So, but it's also recognizing that at some point they're going to be well and done with some of these things. But I kind of don't think we're there yet. Joel, what are you looking forward to?
I would love FileVault to be more deterministic with users.
I feel like the File Vault and Secure Token in particular are sore subjects amongst the admin community.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. We've had a couple of sessions over the years at conferences like this and other stuff to kind of pick this apart. Certainly the early versions of 10.14 were a little bit of a step back in some of the things that weren't functional, which is no bueno. And there's a lot of things that, I'd like to do at the login window where we could create new users, do things like that. And we're still, not all the pieces are in place. Plus the whole idea that you still have to use a password to actually unlock the volume in the first place. Now that we have T2 chips and everything, you think, well, maybe there's some opportunities here that can be wired a little bit better into the EFI side. Because that actual part of it, and I know we have a lot of confusion like with Nomad login, where people think they're logging into Nomad, but they're actually at the EFI layer. So it'd be really cool to make that a little tighter.
Cool. Grant?
I would like the users and system partitions to be split out, or actually become separate partitions. Then we could have multiple system partitions that make OS updates a lot more reliable, similar to how Chrome does it, where you update a different partition and you just reboot into it and you're done. And it also makes it a lot quicker from the user perspective.
Yep.
And yeah, I was going to say we've been hearing for years that what's a 40-minute login cycle or reboot cycle after a heavy-duty upgrade, or if you've skipped a release and thus have missed a firmware update, you're due for some hurt. And having to tell people, hey, I need you to walk away from your computer for 40 minutes, and they're like, are you kidding me? Because that feels like forever. That's a fair amount of the day. I mean, it does encourage people to go to lunch once in a while, and that's helpful, especially for the whole work-life balance thing. That's always part of our lives. But if you've got to tell people, hey, by the way, I need you to take 20 to 30 minutes away from your computer, and you've got a deadline, and oh, by the way, nothing you use is available to you until you've rebooted. That's kind of a pain.
Well, especially when a good chunk of that is already present in iOS.
Sure.
Exactly. I mean,
exactly.
That's why
It's not rocket
APFS
science
is
at this
perfectly
point.
capable of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is kind of, I'm also looking for is to see if Apple's what they're going to do with Python 2, because Python 2 goes out of support January. Is it January next year?
Yeah.
So Apple's staunch security stance, are they going to ship a language that isn't really being supported and maintained? That's going
What
to be
version of Bash ships on Mac OS right now?
Yeah.
Ooh. Shots fired.
But none of them ship on iOS, right?
Yeah.
No Python on iOS.
Yeah.
No Python. On
Python is still a thing.
Sure.
Eventually.
Whatever. I'm excited. Swift 5 is very close to ABI stability now, which means my 10 meg. We were talking about this earlier. My 10 meg command line utilities are now 20K. But
Nice.
then if you're not on 10.14.4, you've got to download the command line tools. So there is a little bit of a blessing and a curse in there.
Sure.
But significantly, my AWS bill is going down.
Hey, there you go. So I'd like to also take a moment here to say thank you to our sponsor, Mac Stadium, provider of Apple Mac infrastructure as a service. Whether you need a single Mac Mini or a fully scalable Mac private cloud, Mac Stadium can help you move your iOS and Mac app development out from under your desk and into the cloud. Mac Stadium is the only provider of enterprise-class Mac infrastructure as a service. Think AWS or Azure, but built on Mac hardware. They have years of experience doing this for companies like Capital One, Box, Shopify, Pandora, and many more with over 3,000 customers worldwide. They even power most of the build-as-a-service tools like Travis CI. You may have heard about Mac Stadium when they got a shout-out from Apple during the last keynote, announcing the new Mac Mini. As a side note, Mac Stadium has over 8,000 Mac Minis racked in their data centers. If you're building apps for the Apple ecosystem or know a team that is, learn more about Mac Stadium's infrastructure at macstadium.com/macadmins. And they're offering a 14-day free trial of a private cloud or 50% off the first month of a Mac Mini subscription. Just enter the code MacAdmins when you order. Thank you, Mac Stadium. So we're getting down to, the end of the week. We're starting to think about, the summertime. We're starting to think about what's coming next. How are you feeling about the management state of the Mac right now?
That's an open question.
It really is.
And leading.
It is. Well, I mean, there's been, obviously we've had some challenges thrown at us in the last year. Graham said it's probably the most change we've seen in quite some time. He's right. What has that done to your internal happiness level as a Mac admin? I think is probably the better way of phrasing it.
I'm glad I'm not really a Mac admin anymore.
Ooh.
I think that a lot of the changes haven't been properly thought through, and they're mostly well-intentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're coming from the right place.
And in principle, they're all good things. Just we could do a little more of a heads up that they're coming, and then we could provide better feedback into how us as admins, the controls we need to implement these things in our organizations.
Yep.
I mean, so for us, we don't do anything without MDM. So,
Yeah.
and James and the team have been banging the DEP drum for years. So, lucky enough, we're kind of ready for it in a bit, as much as you can. But so it's been interesting. And then it's trying to look at the new workflows we can do around this with people. So, and trying to figure out who is then going to. So if someone's imaging machines, it's going to take an X amount of time to get the machines to start that process off. We need to try and give someone the same time to start a provisioning process with DP, but give them that workflow. We don't want someone to sit there for 2 hours waiting for a thing in front of the screen. I don't need to babysit it. We need to try and bring in the workflows and move people along, but not take up any more of their time, but also make sure we do something in the restrictions of what Apple now require us to do as well, which we're saying sometimes isn't that clear. Secure token can be interesting. So those type of things. So it's been, so we're still getting the same ends, still getting devices being deployed, but it's just trying to make sure that we don't fight against Apple. And then we're trying to educate people who are not Apple literate. We are the managed service provider for them. So we then have to make sure we've got the right training documentation and stuff like that. And that's always interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess it's maybe a little different. I don't know that I feel much differently about the management side now than I did a year ago. There's definitely as much maybe chaos in some of this, in change, transition. I think there's some really cool opportunities. I've been excited about some of the advances Swift has been making and things like that. So that's been near and dear to my heart, and it's been enabling that and a little more maybe focused and on the management side, kind of like Graham. When you're not day to day in it, you have a little bit of a different perspective about some of that.
Sure. And, one of the things that I keep struggling with is MDM is awesome. MDM is required. MDM is also not enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I called it MDM Plus. That's what you need. That's what you need.
There you go. There you go, Phil. Please, deliver the royalties payment directly to Mr. Toms when you launch us a MDM Plus service that maybe works a little bit better. So, what are you looking for? What are you looking to have MDM do that it doesn't right now?
I would like it not to operate like it's UDP.
Yes.
Basically, if you don't know, you fire out your profile, your command, and you hope it gets there. It might not. It might do. It might not. You don't really know. So then you find out, oh, maybe it hasn't worked. I'll just try again. And that's not really good enough. That's why most of the management tools have their agent, because just MDM's not enough.
Right. And we always talk about desired state management, and that's one of the things that I love that Monkey does is that it's desired state management. You are describing the desired state for the individual machine, and then if you can't get it there, at least get a log trace as to why. MDM is management via UDP. You just don't know. It just doesn't care if it gets there, and that's not ideal for a number of reasons, especially not least of which compliance. So.
You've always got the fun things as well. Apple shipping apps, GarageBand, Xcode, etc. That you actually need the non-MDM bit to do other activities, to bring down your loops, to add the developer tools, etc. So there's certainly areas where Apple can help us pushing us down MDM route by giving us making us have these workarounds that we need to facilitate this. Instead, we should just VPP, we should be able to deploy content with the VPP as well, the additional stuff. In-app purchases still isn't a thing. That could be resolved as well. Yeah. And then we won't have to do, if we don't then need the local agent, then I think we're all going to be happier. But at the moment, it's just not going to be feasible.
Yeah. I don't know if this is specific to MDM, but Ben, you had earlier mentioned the managed Apple IDs, which I think is really cool and kind of validates that a lot of this is going to cloud identities. In doing that. So we're excited about that. Obviously, we're doing a lot of work in that area as well. What I would love to see, though, is you sign in to get that managed Apple ID, but then you've got to sign in again to Office. You've got to sign in again to whatever else that you have on there. and we're almost back to, you roll the clock back 10 or 15 years ago, everybody had an individual password for everything, and it was single sign-on because it was the same password.
Because it was always the same password.
And I mean, that's key with managed Apple IDs. It is single sign-on in that way, as in you log in with a managed Apple ID to a shared iPad, but it's not going to have your assertion tokens and all the rest of it. It's not going to take you into your ADFS, whatever. It's one set of credentials across multiple.
And somewhere in the 90s, right? 90s, Kerberos took us into this promised land where you'd have a token and cool things would happen. And where it seems like we're now at the beginning of that single sign-on, but not somebody else used the term SSSO, seamless single sign-on, which I guess was their idea of you only sign in once. So, and some of this is knowing a little bit more, having worked with some of these things under the covers, it's actually fairly not complicated to hand off some of these tokens and things like that, so that we could get an environment that really makes a lot of sense with that, so that we don't have to annoy the bejeebus out of the user with signing into Salesforce and Box and
Well, now you've got your Adobe shared device licensing. You've got labs now, and people are going to have to log in and assign and license the apps as they're trying to start their class. They have the same credentials there. Maybe that's when you look at federating that, but then that might be for Office 365 as well.
Yep.
And I mean, at least they're going to have one set of credentials, but like you say, it's going to be prompt and prompt and prompt for details again and again and again.
Yeah, and these aren't ideal situations, and the world got a lot more interesting and a lot more complex when we went toward cloud services again, because you get a lot more interesting tools, and you get a lot more operating system unable to understand those tools. The lack of a native layer, I think, for third-party IDP is starting to get to be troublesome. Maybe not for you, Joel. I mean, you've got all the tools.
We'll build a business off that, but yes.
and good on you for doing it, because I mean, having conditional access in Nomad login and the equivalent objects that are included in Jamf Connect and things along those lines is really, really helpful. And it's definitely worth an extra a premium on top of that, but it comes with a config layer and an infrastructure layer that maybe I'd like to see come to smaller businesses.
Agreed.
And I think that there are a lot of small enterprises out there that really need and want the layer of security that the folks at the larger enterprises get.
And it's not there yet, which is unfortunate, because I think there's a path to that makes it pretty simple. Mm-hmm. But then there's a lot of moving pieces between all the different players, the apps, and things like that make it a little more complicated.
Yeah, and we always talk about Apple moving fast, but who's moving faster? All of the cloud service backends that are associated with it. And so how do you make sure that you're catching up at that point if you're Apple, trying to stay on top of all of these things? So third party may make more sense.
Yep.
So I'm also going to break here to say thank you for our folks at SimpleMDM. Hey there, Apple admin. It's me, your mobile device management suite. Hey, listen, I decided I just don't feel like maintaining your devices today. Also, that app deployment you wanted me to do, I'm not going to do it. It's not that I'm lazy. It's that I just don't care. Don't bother searching my support docs for an answer, and save yourself some time talking to customer servicely, because honestly, no one's going to help you. Ready for your mobile device manager to stop treating you like crap? Introducing SimpleMDM. SimpleMDM is replacing clunky, outdated mobile device management suites like me with a lightweight, reliable web interface. It could literally save you hours every week. Plus, when you need support, you can get expert assistance in under 30 minutes. Ready to fire your MDM? You should be. Visit simplemdm.com/macadmins to schedule a chat about your deployment, or just to start your fully unlocked 30-day trial. Say sayonara to your lame mobile device manager, and hello to SimpleMDM at simplemdm.com/macadmins. So, best part about being in London? I mean, Joel, you're another American like me. What's the best part about being over here?
Brexit did not happen tomorrow.
We think.
Right? We think. I mean, this isn't a political statement one way or the other. I don't want to get that started.
Yeah.
But I am excited that my path home is much clearer at this point than it was maybe a week or two ago.
I'm pretty sure the idea of Brexit is to make sure that foreigners didn't stay.
Well, it's kind of funny. Maybe this is funny or not. My wife is texting me because apparently Theresa May said she'll step down after Brexit. And her comment was, does that mean she's never stepping down? So look at that little local humor right there.
Hey, there you go.
Sharing the cultural experience.
Yeah.
But no, this was great because I didn't realize when I booked my ticket that we were kind of backstopping both sides of Brexit.
Well, I'm staying for tomorrow. We're doing a Wi-Fi workshop tomorrow, and I started. The only way I was going to get out. My flight was. I was trying to get out on Friday, and then all of the fares for tomorrow. And I actually went and looked today what it would take to fly home on Friday. All of the fares for Friday back to the States was like $3,000.
Yeah.
So I don't know if, and it's like they're like, you really don't want to stay. How much can we get out of you?
Well, I was thinking about like putting some gas masks and maybe emergency rations into and maybe it could make some money off selling that.
Hey, there you go.
It's been a while since I've been in a good riot, but unfortunately, this has been very quiet.
perfectly civilized. Thank you, Britain, for being
exactly.
perfectly civilized. Graham, is it the curry?
Yeah, I'm going to say that's the culinary highlight of my trip. So just going for a curry, and beer, and all my other very healthy hobbies.
Yes, Ben, you're just at home.
Well, I live a little bit north of the river.
Sure.
I'm the most northerly employee for Daedra. But we had what's been great for us though is all of us has been here, and we got to stay in an Airbnb, and it's been some interesting times. But it's great to have had all of us here, seeing different people as well.
Are the same number of people leaving this weekend as arrived? Are they still all Data Jar employees? I mean, that's kind of what you're hoping for, right?
We're all still friends. It's all good.
Hey, there you go.
I just don't know if some people have decided that they've just had their fill of me now and they're quite happy to go back working remotely. Maybe.
Cool. That's a decent way to look at it. My wife works for a company that's 100% remote, and they recently did their team gather up in San Diego, and they were like, that was a lot of enforced closeness. We think we're done seeing you guys for at least another 6 months after a week together. And they were like, yeah, that was great. That was so much fun. I'm so glad you're leaving. That is the kind of the dangers of the remote work, I guess, at that point, is that you kind of get used to people on the other end of a keyboard or on an hour or two delay. Yeah. And that's kind of nice. And then like suddenly they can ask you questions and they like expect an answer immediately, like some kind of animal. That's always the adventure. But so thinking about how we skill up at conferences like this and how we think about how we train our workforces as you guys grow and other things like that. So what's something that you've really kind of mentally increased the priority level of in terms of like, what am I looking for in somebody, or what's a skill that somebody that you want to see in other people in the field that you just don't think is there enough? I feel like everybody said, "Oh, well, you should go learn Python," or you should go learn a language," or you should go learn Swift. Was that better?
Oh, that was better.
Excellent, wonderful. But what's something that you think is important that just isn't emphasized enough?
I think learning how MDM works, like at a really low level, is going to become way more important because. Maybe not soon, but one day it is going to be our only management mechanism for macOS. I mean, I just struggle to find anyone who disagrees with that. So, I wouldn't necessarily learn a particular MDM is massively useful. Just learn how MDM works. What services are involved, how APNS works.
Mm-hmm. Marcus, co-host Marcus, gave a really great talk on how APNS works as part of DEP at JNUC last year, and I'll put the link to that in the show notes. It was a real good overview of those kind of things. So, Joel?
I think obviously the big takeaway is that change here is getting constant and faster. I kind of look back to the old Mac Worlds in San Francisco. And there was kind of like 2 or 3 years where we'd go up, talk about AD binding and kind of the same thing over and over again. And I don't see that happening anymore now, that the pace of change and things coming in has increased. It's maybe me just getting older. I'm not sure. But it seems like it's going faster. And maybe it's good for people getting into this environment now when you didn't know what it was to be like the hated Mac admin in the dark closet trying to fight your way through the sea of Windows. This is a whole different world out here now, and so maybe it's different. Maybe we're the dinosaurs.
I don't know. I still kind of feel that way sometimes with, some of our places where we're dealing with a smaller Mac estate inside a large Windows enterprise, and we have to have the conversation like, yes, I'd like to be able to, engage with your services. Can you maybe not be stupid about the way in which services are available? I still feel that way in a lot of cases. So, for me, what it comes down to is like empathy. And I'm really looking for a sense of empathy from the other people who are on your team to think about things not just in the way where I really need X to do Y. I need to understand why X needs to do Y and what the overarching constants are above that. And I need to understand how that affects the working relationships between the teams that exist out there. Because it's enough to say, yes, I need X to do Y. But I need to understand the totality of X so I can understand what part of X does Y. So I feel like there's a lot of mental algebra that needs to happen as part of that. And part of that's just understanding how teams work together. I feel like a lot of people don't have that enough.
And like you were saying, more cloud services now as well. So it's bringing in those sympathetic workflows and trying to make those cloud services work and any other things as well. And that's where things do seem to be moving quite a lot now. But what's interesting is as maybe things are being taken away with one hand, you're looking at these workflows, but we're losing a lot of technical debt as well. So as we're being pushed further and further forward, there are some things that have just gone. I mean, remember the old days of FileVault when you'd like just your home folder would be encrypted, all those mad. Yeah, yes.
All those days.
Sorry for any PTSD triggered or anything. Portable home directories, all those kind of things that have gone to the wayside. So I should put a warning up.
We'll have that in the show notes. Don't worry.
Is there a therapy group for all these?
Please. Joel, any thoughts on that?
Did somebody solve David's calculus problem?
Which one?
He had one on the signing side, right? Was there more than one?
Well, there was a lot of math in that session. Sorry, I'm in Britain. I should say maths. It is plural over here. That was actually a lot of fun. Was seeing a lot of those, a lot of that, internal, signing functions in terms of large prime numbers and all those things.
It's cool to actually see how the maths. Did I get that right?
Yes, that was good. Yeah,
maths.
It feels wrong.
Maths works.
Oh, so it was arithmetic. Excellent. So thank you we appreciate that.
Wow.
So he had mentioned that it was arithmetic because there are no higher level functions. Although there's exponentiation. Is exponentiation beyond straight maths? I don't know. It's just repeated multiplication, so we're good. Okay. Okay, fair enough. I'm following you.
I'm not sure this is a conversation we should be having after 2 days of a conference.
It was enough. It was enough.
This wasn't the conference I signed up for.
Well, I always have to, during the Wi-Fi talks, I always put up a warning screen that says you are about to be explained physics by a liberal arts major. So I kind of felt that was kind of where I was coming from yesterday. Was okay, and now I'm a liberal arts major trying to understand high-level encryption. Yay! It's fun.
To be fair, I've used Ron Jeremy to explain certs. So
yes, you did. I saw that talk, and I still have the scars to prove it. It worked though. That was a good analogy. Maybe not WorkSafe though. Don't watch that talk at work. So I think we're going to start to wrap things up here. I did want to give out a quick readout of the community calendar because that's going to be easier this way. We are at the Mac Admins and Developers Conference UK, so that is over. Just about. We've got one little more thing to go. The ACES Conference is in Kansas City, the 5th and 6th of June. The Mac Deployment Conference will be in Calgary at the 10th and 11th of June, just preceding. You can just hop over the Rocky Mountains. They're not that big. Yes, they are. Into Mac DevOps YVR in Vancouver, which is the 12th through 14th of June. XWorld is in Sydney, Australia, and registration is now open for that. It's the 26th to the 28th of June, 2019. Huge apologies to the Mac Admins conference organizers because we screwed up the dates last week. This is what happens when you don't pay close attention to your merge requests in the GitHub. So I will pay more close attention to that. It is the 9th through 12th of July in State College, Pennsylvania. The registration for that is now open. Early bird runs for about a month.
I hear there's a Swift session.
Is there really? Are you doing a Swift workshop? Is that?
I hear
that's going to be exciting. So come learn from the Swift guy. I'm doing some Wi-Fi talking. So with Chris Daw from Wheelwrights, we're going to explain Wi-Fi in a day. or at least as much of it as we can cram in. The Jamf Nation User Conference is in Minneapolis, the 12th through 14th of November. We have 3 meetups on the calendar. San Diego Mac Admins will meet on the 10th of April. University of Utah Apple Admins will meet at the Marriott Library on the 17th. And Apple Admins of the Pacific Northwest will meet on 18th of April at 6 p.m. And Ben?
And 12th of April, London Apple Admins, hosted by our friends at Jigsaw.
Yay.
So the more details coming out, or is it posted out already, or? It's out
Yeah,
already.
it's already out. So no pull
organized,
request yet. So
Was that a live merge request there?
that was. So
Well, especially if you folks are new as well, you come to Macaduck and you are your London admins as well. Come and carry on this with us.
yeah, and these are great places also. If you saw a talk this week and you were inspired, I can do that. And you should all say, I can do that, because you can. Every last person in this room can get up there and give a talk like we're doing right now, because we're just talking. We're just having a good time. I encourage you to do that. Talk to Ben. Talk to the other organizers of the London Apple Admins. This is a great way to kind of polish your experience and to get up and do these kind of things, because it's a lot of fun to get up and talk and say, yes, I have explained a thing. It's also a great way to make sure you know the thing, or at least know what you think you know about a thing. And then, people will say, well, actually, what about Y? Or I've also learned that Z. And these are great ways to kind of expand your own knowledge that way. So
Yeah, I do wonder what David was thinking sometimes when he's learning all this arithmetic, maths, whatever we're going to call it, because I imagine he didn't start off with that in mind, I don't think. I imagine he got to the point and you'd look at yourself and go, why? And he's nodding at me, yes. So.
Yeah. And of course, that's the community calendar. Thanks so much to our longtime sponsor, Watchman Monitoring, who are in the back of the room. JD, Alan, thank you so much for sponsoring the community calendar and your ongoing support of the Mac Admins podcast. I think that's about it for today. I think we've had a really great audience. I think I want to turn this over because it's after 6 already. Sorry, everybody. I didn't mean to run over. But I think that's going to about do it for the day. I think we got one more say thank you from the folks out there. But where can folks find you on the internets if they want to track you down later, Ben?
So I'm MacMule on Slack. MacMule.com is the blog. Best places to find me, really, those two.
Cool. Grant?
I'm really original. My name on Slack is Graham Gilbert.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I tweeted a year ago.
Okay.
But that's at MacTroll.
Okay. That works. And that'll find you on the Mac Admin Slack as well.
Yes.
And of course, you can go find that stuff. Are you guys still at GitLab for Nomad?
Of course.
Things like that?
Why would we not be?
I don't know.
The icon changes color.
Oh, yeah.
When
You
roll
do
the
get the
mouse
fox.
over it.
Yeah.
It's the fox.
Yeah. Not the Octocat, the fox.
Yeah.
So.
So all that stuff is up in GitLab as before.
Yeah. So thanks very much to our sponsors this week. That is VMware, Mac Stadium, and Simple MDM. Thanks to Watchman Monitoring for the support of the community calendar. Thanks very, very, very much to all of the folks at DataJar and MSys who helped put on this wonderful event. Please clap. They're awesome. And that gives me 2 seconds to look up all of the other names I have to say thank you to, including Randy Wong, Weldon Dodd, Jonathan Spiva, Justin Holt, Chad Swarthout, William Smith, Stephen Weinstein, Jason Detbarn, and Seb Nash. Thanks for backing us on the Patreon. Your coasters will be in the mail next week, and they'll be up in the store before too long. Coasters. We got
that a
sweet
thing
little
now?
coasters. Yes, you can get coasters made.
DataJar coasters?
Yeah.
Are we done with stickers?
No, I think this is plus stickers. Like this is like, hey, I want to do something a little bit different. You can get one to take, to put your beer on, and while you listen, even. So that's exciting.
I'm excited.
Well, thanks to everybody who came out today to see us in London, and we'll see you next time.